Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so we'll make a start. So this evening we thought it was important to make it very relevant to the current situation. But it's interesting that actually we picked this topic about habits some weeks ago, before all of this thing kicked off. We're guessing that some of you, most of you perhaps, are going to be working from home to some extent. It's interesting that Rita and I are quite used to working from home, but for a lot of people it's quite an adaptation. For example, my two daughters are both working from home, and they both have children. So this is one of them working from home. Can you all see that? But we wanted to make it particularly relevant to you tonight. So the topic of habits is very pertinent. Rita, what else do we want to say in terms of just the preamble before we get into the detail?
Well, I suppose most people will know that we, or from the communication at least, that we normally run the forum. So what we've done is selected some item tonight alongside what we had posted as the topic for the forum, which was about habits, but added in some extra things. And we're happy for you to pull us back to the current situations, and we hopefully will pull out evidence and experiences of where we're all at now. I think there's not very much else. We know that, and those of you who've joined us before in any of our forums, we like to keep it very informal, but we always have a lot to share. So sometimes we're a little over ambitious, and we will do our best to keep definitely to the time. But there will be a lot to put in. So what we're suggesting is that we'll run through it, and then we'll open up the mics every so often for any questions. Feel free. I'm doing the multitasking and keeping an eye on any of the chat room conversations, and then we'll take it as it goes from there.
Okay. So one of the first things that we wanted to share with you, because it's the first thing that really came to mind for us when we thought about the current situation, was a particular model, and I'm just going to pop it up on screen for you now, hopefully, is this one. So this is something that some of you may be familiar with. It's again...
Kevin, could I just interrupt you for a moment to say there are a couple of people online who aren't necessarily got their video working, so I don't know if they see things, so we might need to explain what's going up as well.
Okay, all right. So this is a model by Robert Dilts, who most of you will know is one of our favorite people in terms of some of the useful things that he comes out with, and this is called the crash and coach model. And we're just going to take you through that one there, except it's not moving on. Just bear with me a second. I'm going to have to come out and move it on. Okay, just bear with me. Share screen.
So this is a particular model we thought would be incredibly useful for the current situation, and it's about our own states and the choice of state we're in, or perhaps the habit of state we're in.
So in the crash state, and this is what a lot of people are feeling at the moment, I think. Obviously this is unprecedented, what's happening now, and people have gone into this particular crash state. So in terms of their physicality, we tend to kind of go inwards. So we contract and we withdraw from the situation. The R is for reactive. So because things are so new to us, we tend to be reacting rather quickly rather than kind of allowing things to take on board and settle for a while. Hence things like panic buying in supermarkets, for example. The other thing that we tend to do, the A stands for analysis paralysis. So a lot of the time what we do is we tend to go internal and we think about things perhaps a little bit too much. We worry, we try and think our way of situations that, you know, currently it's impossible to do. We haven't got all the answers. There's no way we can come up with all the answers at this current time, and yet we still keep thinking about things and turning it over in our minds. The S then is for being separated, and it's this idea that we tend to again withdraw inwards, and I guess the best example of that is the fact that most of us are in lockdown currently anyway. So in the absence of kind of connecting like this, we've lost a lot of our social and business ways to connect. And the H is that we tend to respond quite often by feeling that hurt, or maybe hate is quite a strong word, but certainly a strong dislike when we see some of the behaviors that we're seeing around us. And maybe again, some of you have experienced kind of hitting out at other people, certainly verbally, if not physically. But that's the typical crash state that a lot of people are finding that their mood state has taken them to at the current time.
And then on the contra side of that, we've got what, of course, we're proposing as a more useful and valuable state, which is use the acronym of COACH, which is pertinent for all of us probably. Kevin may be sharing screen.
There you go.
But again, so we've got the other side. So we've got the C here, rather than contracted, it's about being centered. It's about reconnecting with yourself and being aligned, and that more confidence that you'll have. I mean, the whole coach concept is it's about being out there and open and confident and aligned, whereas the crash was almost this small, contracted, almost victim-like. So this is I'm more responsible for my actions and what I'm doing, and it starts with the C for centered. So that's the groundedness. And in fact, what we'll do to conclude the call tonight, we'll actually facilitate the process of just taking you through a state elicitation, taking you through this coach principle, which will hopefully leave you in a wonderful state when you leave here, and hopefully start to create a new pattern. I mean, I'm sure many of us on the call today do know the benefits and know how to connect again with that centeredness of who I am. The O for openness, is about being out there, being uptime. Uptime is when we're looking up and noticing things. It's not being in our head and analysing things. It's being open to possibilities and opportunities. It's about looking at different perspectives and being open to hearing the different perspectives. The A for awareness is about noticing what's going on for you and other things as well. Again, it's about some of your attention being outside of yourself, or at least not in your head, not the analysing, when you just noticing things and taking that as it is, just noticing rather than analysing, rather than having in your head what's going on in the future and guessing what might happen, or fearing about things, anxiety about the past and things that have happened in the past. So it's being aware of what's actually going on, both physically in yourself, because awareness is the first, if we want to change anything, being aware of what's actually going on. If there's tension, if there's concerns, if you notice you're starting to go in your head and analyse and start thinking about things over and over again and getting caught in that vicious circle, the first thing is just to be aware, just to notice, aha, that's what I'm doing. The connectedness is again, you know, it's about making those connections with other people. It's about the awareness being out there with other people. And this is something that Kevin mentioned there, when we have got that separatedness physically very often. If you're like me, I am noticing two interesting things about the lockdown. First and foremost, in some respects, I'm more connected in the last week than I have been. I don't know if that's true for any of the rest of you, but I'm making that effort to stay connected with friends and family who perhaps it was more infrequent. So in terms of clients, friends and family, ensuring that connection is there is one of the ways of me staying more grounded. It's also, of course, about my concern for them and wanting to do what I can to help them, and connecting with you as a community, so that we can appreciate that we're what we share about this and what we can do differently to help each other in this circumstance. And the H is a lovely holding, and the absolute opposite to what the H was.
So binary, isn't it?
In the other. Yes. So the holding is holding the space. Again, for any of us who are coaches or counselors, that's a terminology we frequently use, isn't it? Where we're holding the space for the client to be, for the client to experience what they're experiencing, become aware of what they're doing, being able to be in the moment. I suppose the mindfulness principles come very strongly into that holding space for yourself and for other people. And I hope that that sort of, it's a very simple and nice, but seeing the contrast between those two, the crash and the coach, I think it's very easy to get caught up in the crash. Again, if I share from my personal experience, the early day, maybe a fortnight ago, when the news was escalating and the rules were changing, every day was different and it felt so unstable. I found myself, whether it was totally totally crash or totally coach, there was this undulation as I started to resettle and reconnect and recenter. If you concur that you've had some up and downs in your moods, just nod your head. Does it feel like it's been changing? And hopefully we're going to, I think I had a couple of days where I thought, oh my goodness, what does this all mean? What does it mean for my loved ones who are in that hypersensitive group, etc.? And, there were bits of this, and then I'd pull myself up. And now at the moment, but I know things change all the time, I'm just, able to go between those two. So that's something we'll come back to at the end, but we think it's a very, very powerful model, just again to raise your awareness of when you are thinking, well, where am I at? What could I do differently? Connect with people if it's not working. Become more centered and grounded. Breathing, standing on the floor, actually centering and grounding yourself, and techniques like that. And Kevin will take us through that particular process at the end as well.
Okay, do we just need to do a check on mics? Right, yeah.
Well, what I'm doing for anyone who isn't already muted, because you've joined us subsequently, I'm muting all again. If you want to say, I have to unmute Kevin, I have to remember to do that. So you're all muted. Well, I've done mute all, but the little arrow hasn't come up, but never mind. I'm sure that's okay.
Steph's raised a hand at this point.
He has. So Steph, we're going to will I unmute Steph so she can talk to us?
Yeah.
Hello, Steph. Have I not unmuted Steph? I can't see her on the screen at the moment.
I've unmuted myself. Yeah, so I was just interested to know about what did DILTS develop this model specifically for? Was it for times of change, crisis, or was it for managing your state if you're feeling agitated and not to go into crash and try to adapt coach, or what does it kind of apply it to?
I think one of the things that it was actually built for, Steph, was to actually get yourself into the right frame, the right state when you're actually coaching somebody.
Oh, right, yeah.
But I think because of that, because it's essentially a state management tool, you can apply it in any situation. So, it's really interesting that, as I say, it was literally the first thing I thought about when all of this started to kick off, because in that first week, so we're talking about week before last, I'm referring to that as the first week, I'd actually come back from 2 weeks away, and I came back early. So I kind of found myself all at sea that week, because I'm sure everybody did. But I think particularly because you know what it's like adjusting when you come back from being away anyway. And I thought, you know, what's going on here? Because I'm kind of all over the place. And then when I thought about that, this was the model for me that came to mind.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Steph.
Okay, so if we move on now to you know, use that as a frame for getting into the right mood state for yourself, and then the kind of next stage is we think that this situation does actually present us with some opportunities, because all of our normal patterns of working, of life, of connecting are all kind of up in the air, and some of us, maybe not all of us, are finding that we've actually got time that we want to utilize in different ways. So it does actually present us with opportunities to develop some habits, some useful habits. And what we are defining a habit as is a particular pattern that when we run it as an autopilot, it actually helps us to run our lives more efficiently, more effectively, and can actually save us time and energy. And one of the things that some of you will be aware of is this kind of rule of thumb that's been bandied about over the last few years about how long does it take to develop a habit. Some of you will have heard that it's 21 days. You know, is it 14 days? Is it 21 days or whatever? One of the key things that we've found in sort of researching this topic is it's not the duration of time that you are practicing the habit for, but it's actually the number of times that you practice the habit. And we'll come on to some examples in a minute, but you know, some of these habits that you want to take on board, you could actually do 5, 6, 7, 10 times a day. So as I say, it's not the duration, but it's the number of times that you can put them into practice that will really make a difference. Okay.
So again, we're going to relate this to a model that some of you, certainly many of you, will be familiar with. It's another DILTS model. It's the logical levels of development. And this is a model that helps us explain the system of humankind, a person. And it looks at, there we go, and it's really looking at the relationship between our behaviors, capabilities, values and beliefs, identity, purpose, and the environment around the outside. It's the environment that's changing for us currently very much, which will in some ways impact on the rest of what we're doing. The interesting things about habits, and one of the key things I liked we were considering about habits, is that habits can help strengthen your identity. That habits, which are at a behavioral level at the bottom of the pyramid there, they can reinforce your identity. The question perhaps to ask yourself when you're thinking about changing or creating a new habit for yourself is to ask yourself, does this behavior help me become the type of person I wish to be? It's a really powerful question, I think, that, you know, is what I'm doing, you might even use it if we were doing an audit of all my habits. Are these things I'm doing, are they expressions at a behavioral level of who I want to be? Does this habit cast a vote for or against my desired identity? So it's a really interesting way that it was only through recent readings that I'd sort of, you know, come to grips with what we were talking about there. And I thought, yeah, and am I suppose, questioning myself and raising my awareness, am I checking my habits and ensuring that they're helping me be the person I want to be? And when there's a either a good habit I want to introduce that perhaps I've been lacking on to date, connecting it to, actually, it's really important to me that I do this because this is how I want to be seen, whether it's someone who's more helpful and caring. What habits am I encouraging in myself and my behaviours that say I'm more caring of others? If I want to be fitter and healthier, what habits am I building in so that I am that person, so that I become that person who is fit and healthy? If I want to be an artist, what habits will I start? If I want to be able to say, hey, I'm an artist, I'm creative, I'm a writer, I'm an athlete, whatever it is there, that they're really powerful motivators for me in asking and answering those questions. So we're sort of looking at the process of building habits here. But I suppose in terms of habit, there's two simple steps to the process. One is to decide in the first place, who is it I want to be? You know, what the type of person that you want to be. And the second one is then prove it to yourself with small wins in terms of building those habits that support who you want to be. So I hope that makes sense, that it combines, so they're behavioural level, things that are evidence to the world that you are who you want to be. And then by focusing on the process and doing those, then I create the beliefs about myself. Every time I practice that habit, every time I put that habit into action, I'm reinforcing that belief about myself that I am that person that I want to be. Nod if it makes sense. Excellent. Excellent.
Okay, so we're going to be asking you in a moment for some examples of some of the things that you want to start as a habit. We've got some examples that we can share with you as well. But we wanted to emphasize that when we've run our NLP programs and leadership programs in the past, we've put a lot of emphasis on the idea of setting outcomes and well-formed outcomes, which is very relevant for you setting your direction, and as Rita says, they're linking to your identity. What we're going to be also focusing on here is the idea that it's the processes that you are running, the systems, if you like, on a day-to-day basis in terms of your habits. Those are the things that are going to actually give you the results. And we're going to share with you a particular process that we picked up in a moment that's going to help with that. So in terms of some of the habits that you might be looking to build at the moment, let's just get a slide up for that and see some of the examples.
Because for some people, I suppose the current situation, these euphemisms we use, has allowed more time and more space. I'm sure equally for many of you, you've never been as busy. You know, it's not true for everyone that there's a lot more time. But for a lot of people, the lockdown has certainly meant changing of habits. And so the things that we've got up here are, you know, the doing a new language, gratitude journal, exercise regularly, those sort of things. I wonder if I just open the mics here, or if you want to put on the chat, if you've a consideration of some new habits you're wanting to or considering establishing for yourself. Let me just get rid of that one. Yep. Okay, and I'll unmute all, and you can speak at your leisure or put your hand up, whatever you like to do. Who's going to share with us first?
I think for me, it's more, do a bit more self-care.
Self-care.
Do some extra meditation,
Yeah.
eat more healthy, and just take a bit more time for myself.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jane.
I'm only just learning it, but it's quite a skill to do everything a bit more slowly, and I think it brings reward.
Is that someone talking that I'm not? Oh, is that Sally? Hello.
It's safe to say the virus has changed pretty much every aspect of our lives.
one Yorkshire couple had to close their business.
Sounds like somebody's got the news on in the background.
Oh, it's the news. It's not someone contributing to this. Okay. I tell you what then I'll do. If I unmute all, I can give you the option that you allow the participants to unmute themselves. So that's probably a better way to get rid of the interference. So let's just have another couple of ones. We've got the fact about, which sounds very sensible, that's self-care, more meditation. Anyone else thinking? Kevin, you're thinking, you're muted. You can unmute yourself, Kevin.
Okay.
I've
I was
done
just gonna say, I think it was somebody with headphones on and somebody else was listening to the news. That was all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, ask the question again.
Liz, Liz wants to share.
Yeah, I've ever since this thing's started, I've been able to, because I'm very fortunate, to go for a walk every day, and it hasn't been pissing with rain. To go for a walk in the countryside every day for an hour, which is great.
Yeah.
And it's a thing that I would always think I would like to do, but other things get in the way. There's nothing else to get in the way, which is great.
Brilliant. I wonder if the weather might sometimes, I'm not suggesting it at all, because I know you'll go out every day, whatever the weather is.
No, I won't. Not if it's pissing with rain, I won't.
I've set myself the new habit that come rain, hail or snow, I'll at least do a short trek. That's my promise to me. But thank you, Liz.
Okay.
And Jonathan? Yes? Oh, except sorry, Jonathan, we did it at the same time.
You can hear me, can you? Yeah. Yeah, one thing that I've not been very good at when I've been working a lot of the time is actually not keeping in touch with parents and brother and sister, and I really haven't been ringing up very often. But actually, just during the last week or two, I've been doing that much more and taking a lot more interest, and really I ought to continue doing that.
Brilliant.
Rita, I think Salma's iPad has raised its hand, it says.
Okay. Where is Salva's iPad?
Yeah.
On here. Have you unmuted yourself, Salva?
I have, yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, working from home has its benefits, because normally I have to go into work. So there's additional time that I've gained in the morning and sort of after work, and I try and use that for self-care to try and relax.
Excellent.
More, and just taken up sort of reading and crosswords that I wouldn't normally do, or a jigsaw, because that's what people have said that they started doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask for a vote or a hands up of some sort. Are any of you doing the PE every morning with Joe Wicks?
I've heard.
Oh, well done,
Natalie,
Chrissy. Well done. It's really good. And what works well on that one for me, I'll come to you in a second, Philip. What works well on that one for me is the fact that there is that connectedness. The fact that lots of people, sometimes I've done it out of time, but between 9 and 9:30, there's 700,000 people around the globe doing the same thing, and it's so exciting. And what I did this morning, I just linked up with some close family. We just put Zoom or something on, so we were all doing it in our own living rooms, and that added the extra bit. So Jonathan, maybe that's an idea for keeping in touch with your friends, family as well. Philip, what would you like to share?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really struggling, to be honest, because having to the contract I've got is they have told me to work from home, and I'm running some training courses in employability and business and things, and it's kind of, I've had nearly 2 weeks now of full-on intensive work, and it's been absolutely woof.
Yes.
You need 12-hour day, and it's on all the time. Because I've got to, battling against technology, I've got about 14, 15 people. I've got to constantly, the kind of thing, the software doesn't work.
Yes.
Well, so I'm having to WhatsApp them 3 at a time or something to communicate, and they're sending work in. It's become so much more intense than I've ever had before. Never worked so hard. I've been so tired ever. I do tend to still get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and just do a little run round to give myself a bit of energy. But then I'm working before work and whatever. I think if I put it, I never really thought of this before, but I think that given that we've only had one weekend of Corona crisis,
Yes.
I think I actually valued my weekend more than I ever did before, ever. And doing nothing, and by nothing I mean not doing it, not even chilling or not even watching telly, just doing nothing, just sitting about doing nothing.
Yes.
Because in the week I've been tied to intensive lesson times, 9 till 3, plus marking that has to be done within 24 hours.
So the weekends are your precious time.
I don't think I realised that before, but it's kind of, and also, also the other thing was we haven't been anywhere to see any of the kids for a number of weeks. And now I'm thinking I've actually got more time at weekends just to sort of ring people up and WhatsApp and grandkids and everything else. So but the only thing I ever neglected is also I'm not kind of ringing them up during the day in the week, which I might have done before when I was off work and one of my kids was off work.
Yeah. So it's getting a very intense weekend when you're doing all the catching up, all the nothingness as well.
Yeah, I'm doing lots of nothingness, which is good, and it's kind of I've never really felt so appreciative of. I never used to get the kind of Friday night feeling.
And now you get it.
I think, Philip, it's a timely reminder. Thanks for sharing that, because you know, I think it's okay for some of us to say we've actually got a little bit more time to focus on these things, but you know, it's recognizing that not everybody has really.
Yeah, I'm obviously saving travelling time.
Sure.
And that realization and awareness, as things move forward, it obviously will be important for you to in some way manage that, to ensure you do get your self-care and perhaps extend some time into the week as well. We've got Salma and Zoe. I think Zoe was first, so I'll invite Zoe. Unmute. Oh, I keep doing it. Sorry, Zoe. I know you know how to unmute yourself. Sorry, Zoe.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Yeah.
Yeah, echoing Philip's thoughts, really. I mean, I've been busier this last sort of week and a half than I have been in a long time. But I think, in one sense, I think it's made you appreciate what I'm doing and what I choose to do. And I've probably had to say no to more things that I normally would have just gone, yeah, I'll do that. And because of the commitments that I've got, I've had to say no. And on one hand, that's not a bad thing, to kind of have to choose what things you're going to do, and maybe have some conversations with people about, no, I'm really sorry, but I can't do that. And kind of push back on things a bit more. And hopefully now that when things change, it means that then, you know, I can continue with the things that I choose to fill my time with, and not kind of have to overcommit to things and not be able to say no.
Very good. So maybe that's a new habit. Rather than automatically saying yes, developing that choice space to say, am I, will I, won't I, sort of thing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Salma.
You know, when I wasn't working from home, I used to look forward to the weekends. Now I find that my weekends aren't really much different from the weekday, because I feel quite relaxed.
Yeah.
And I do feel like I've got, you know, more time because I'm not going out of the house at all on some days. Yeah.
Well, it's good that you're feeling more relaxed. It's interesting. That sounds like quite a shift from how you were before.
Yeah.
And how that will continue to serve you well, that pace, or will you put more structure in or not? It's just being aware that that's what you're experiencing at the moment.
Yeah, I think part of it was because I did want to work from home, but I was told that you have to be in work, whereas the job that I do, You don't have to be at your desk at work to do it. It can be done elsewhere. So
you're proving a point as well.
Yeah, so for me, it was, you know, what I really sort of wanted. Whereas what I found now is that some of my colleagues that did have the opportunity to work from home previously, they're not liking it as much as
interesting.
some of us. Yeah,
so sometimes we like a change, and for other people that change and losing some of the structure can be quite exhausting, because one of the things that habits do for us is they make our life more efficient in a way. You know, we don't have to think about every action. Our habits are things that are on autopilot, which frees us up for other things. So as we go through any change, I mean, how many of us have studied change management, etc.? As you go through change, it can be exhausting. It's fabulous that you're having the time to rest. Philip's only got the weekend, but his ability to just switch off is fantastic, because it can be exhausting. When the things we're used to are taken away, all those habits that were on autopilot, we're having to start thinking, oh, am I going to walk today? Yeah. What will I do? How will I manage my day? It may take some more energy from us until we create our new habits and new structures around us.
Yeah, that's true. Because things can like drain your energy. Depends really on your personality as well.
Yeah. So just be aware of that. We'll just move on now, I think.
So we're gonna look at now. We're gonna share with you a very simple model. So whether you've got a little bit more time at the moment or less time because of the situation, it's still important to develop these particular habits that are right for you. So we're going to share with you now a particular model. So let me just pull that up. With me a second, and it is this one here. Okay, so this we've taken from a book that we would recommend called Atomic Habits by a guy called James Clear, and it's a very simple 4-stage process to build better habits. The first one is to make it obvious. And that's about making it very clear and specific what the habit is that you want to develop in the first place. The second one, we're going to talk a little bit more about these in detail in a moment, by the way. The second one is about making it attractive so that you actually want to do whatever the thing is, you know, doing the Joe Wicks or painting or going out for a walk or whatever. The third thing is to make it easy for yourself. And the fourth one is to build in some kind of reward mechanism so that when you've finished your particular activity or habit for the day, that you get some reward at the end of it. So we're going to take you through those in a little bit more detail. So Rita, you're going to pick up on that first one, yeah?
Yes, so the first one, make it obvious. So as Kevin said, it's about things being clear and specific. It's about any, I suppose, you know, smart objectives come to mind for me, but or a well-formed outcome or a good outcome in terms of the NLP languaging around it is, you know, what specifically are we looking at here and how can we frame it so it's most useful for us as we establish the new habit. So framing the habit in a useful way. This is a lovely thing to remind ourselves of. So sometimes, particularly if we're trying to establish what we'd consider a good habit for ourselves, we might feel that it's something I have to do. Let's say every morning I want to do my yoga exercise, but I feel like I might frame that as I have to do it because I said I'm going to do it and I'm wanting to get fit and I'm wanting to be more supple, so I have to do it. But actually, if I tell myself and talk to myself about, wow, if I get up at 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to be able to, I get to do a lovely 40 minutes of yoga exercise that's going to set me up for the whole day. Can you see how that framing, rather than I've got to do it because, you know, I said I'm going to do it and it's the next morning and it's Joe Wicks, it's like, wow, I'm going to get the opportunity to connect with 7 million people. It was 700,000, wasn't it? Not 7 million, sorry. 700,000 people, all starting our day in a lovely way. And I'm sure there's some energy field that's out there where we're all starting our day. So if I get up and I manage my time well, I'm going to get the opportunity to do that. How great is that? The next nice little tip in terms of building the habit and making it obvious is being specific. So I will get up early at 7 o'clock. I will get out of bed at 7 o'clock in the morning. Oh, I'm trying to work it into this. Oh, Kevin, help me with this one. I will, because I haven't put I will do yoga at 7 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. So when am I doing it? But some articulation that's very specific. I will get up at 7 o'clock each morning. Actually, that's sounding a bit too early for me. I will get up at 7:30 in the morning, and I will, after going to the bathroom, I'm going to do my yoga practice that's going to set me up fantastically for the day. Then you make this is a very, very useful tips, and I hope this is what we're sharing with you, really, the practical tips that will make these happen for you. Some of them are really obvious, but remember them when you're going into when you're wanting to build a new good habit. Make cues for good habits obvious in your environment. So there's no good me hiding away my yoga mat. So what I do in terms of that example, first of all, I'll set my alarm to get up for the 7:30, we've decided now, isn't it? And then I will have my yoga mat. I have my bedroom to one side, then I have another room that I walk out through, and my yoga mat is on the floor ready for me. So it's prompting me and cueing me and reminding me. So it's really, really important to keep these cues around you. So if you're wanting to practice something, don't hide it away. If you're wanting to eat healthily, don't leave the biscuit jar on the table in front of you. Have a bowl of carrots already peeled. Make it obvious and in your face to help and support you doing it. Make it obvious. And the other thing you can do, which I found really, really clever, and is an example that I've used in practice over the last few months, is stacking habits. So you build a new habit onto something you're already doing. So as soon as I've left the bathroom, I will then do my yoga. Another one I do, when I brush my teeth, I automatically then do some squats afterwards or some stretches. So one triggers the other. So a habit that I'm doing without even thinking about it, going to the bathroom and brushing my teeth, that's total automatic pilot for me. I add in or add on the top of it another habit that I'm just establishing. So do you get that idea? It's such a simple and clever way to make it easier and more obvious, you know, prompting you to do it really. So that's the making it obvious. And
okay, so the second stage is then about making it attractive. And one of the great things about making something attractive and doing something that you enjoy doing is you get a release of a chemical called dopamine. So this is one of the reasons why that every time we are repeatedly doing things that we enjoy, we're getting a chemical release in the body, which is providing the motivation to do it another time. So it's kind of an obvious thing to say. Make sure that when you're picking something to start developing as a habit, that it is something that's right for you. It's actually genuinely something that you want to do. And one of the things we're talking about is tying it in with your identity. And your identity is the self, your sense of yourself and your sense of who you want to be. So make sure that you're picking something that is a good fit for you in the first place. The other thing in terms of making it attractive is that in the same way that you can link it to something, an existing habit that you already have, one other little technique is to make sure that before you are doing something which might be a little bit of a stretch or a challenge for you, that you do something immediately before that you enjoy doing anyway. So for example, I don't know, you might sit down and have a nice cup of tea first thing in the morning before you go off on your walk or your yoga session or whatever it might be. So you're creating that link between something which gives you that pleasure and something that might be stretching you in some way initially. The final thing really in terms of making something attractive is if you compare two activities together so that you can do them simultaneously. And I had a great example of this when it was great that a friend who I've not spoken to for a while connected with me, rang me out of the blue. And one of the things that he was doing, incidentally, was to ring 3 people a day and just checking in with them, how they're doing. And one of the things that he told me was he was doing a rather tough exercise session every morning. And every morning he was doing it to a Pink Floyd album because that was his favorite band. And also being the kind of guy he was doing it in chronological order. So he was starting with the very first Pink Floyd album and going right through to whatever the last one was. So he was doing the 2 things simultaneously, which was making the second one a lot more palatable, which I think is a great tip for making this activity more attractive.
Brilliant. Excellent. I love that one, Kevin. And the next step then is making it easy. So step number 3, making it easy. So there's no surprise, maybe, that human behavior looks for it's the law of least effort. The whole way we're wired up is to create patterns and habit. Our whole system wants to do that to make us more efficient in terms of the way we operate and save our energy. So we naturally gravitate towards an option that requires the least amount of work. So when you're setting up a new habit, it's useful to consider that. How can I make it an easier option compared to other things? It's about reducing the friction, simple way, reducing the number of steps by designing your environment. Like I said before about my yoga mat being out there, so I almost have to trip over it. It's there for me. I don't have to go into another room where I've tidied it away and take it out. It's there, it's reminding me, it's straightforward. It takes out a number of paces in and out of another room to do that. There also is the suggestion that ritualizing the very beginning of the process, so making it a very step-by-step sequence that triggers the rest. So again, I suppose in terms of the yoga practice, it is that it becomes a ritual for me. That's what it is. It's I go to the bathroom, I leave the bathroom, I go to my yoga mat. It becomes the very first bit's very critical in terms of making it very snappy and short, because once you get that initial impetus, then the rest sort of starts to take care of itself. There's a very critical point about, am I going to do it or not? So you want that critical point to be as easy as possible. Get rid of any obstacles, make it a small number of sequences that you can do easily and quickly and get you rolling. The rest almost takes care of itself. In terms of doing things easily and quickly, I suppose it's about having, it's interesting because the author on this book, he suggests that if you want to be a writer, an example, that writing 1 sentence a day starts you getting the mindset and the identity of being a writer. He's broken down being a writer. So someone might think, the person I want to be is a writer. Someone might think of that as being the magnificent novelist, and maybe one day that's what you'll be. But if you want to start the habit, and if you want to reinforce your own beliefs and values about yourself and your identity about being a writer, even writing one sentence a day is going to feed and strengthen that identity. And again, it will become a roller coaster. Then you'll write a paragraph a day, then you'll write a page a day, then you'll write a chapter. That's the concept. So you break it down into small pieces that you think, how could I not do it? I want to be a writer. How could I not write one sentence a day? And you feel like I just want to do that. I get the opportunity to be who I want to be, a writer for one sentence a day even. So he breaks things down into the tiniest little things like that. He talks about athletes, people wanting to go to the gym more. He gets them to just put their shoes on, their trainers. They don't even have to go to the gym. For a whole week, just get your trainers out, put them on, have them positioned, put them on. If your excuse for not going to the gym was that, I can't fit it in my day, get into the habit of just going to the gym. Even if you don't do a workout practice every night, build it into your routine of coming home from work or at whatever change. Just build it into something that's already there. And then in 3 weeks' time, you start thinking of yourself, I'm someone who goes to the gym. I'm someone who goes to the gym, and then you'll start doing your exercise as well. And in no time at all, there you go, you're an athlete, or your fitness has gone up and you're encouraged to do more. In a similar way, talking about small things, something we're probably, a number of us will be familiar with, we're talking about the marginal gains. So a particular example of doing small things to make a huge difference, creating new habits and new patterns of experience things, is like the British Cycling Organisation. If you've heard about what they did with their new coach, they really turned the organisation, the British Cycling, from what was almost a joke to being at the top level in the world in terms of cycling. And the principle was one of marginal gains. They looked at every aspect of cycling, every aspect of what the professional athletes were doing, what they were eating, how they were sleeping. They looked at what mattresses suited each cyclist best. They painted the inside of their buildings white so that they could see dust, because dust might get in the grooves of the wheels when they're doing the mechanics. What they eating, and it was individualized, and they made tiny little adjustments. The number of tiny little adjustments, the 1% improvements they made, meant they went from being a laughing stock to being the top of the profession. And I think that's a very empowering thing, to think about making those small changes, small improvements, marginal gains. They build up to a tipping point until you're making the difference that you want to in terms of the quality. I found that incredibly useful reminder. It doesn't have to be a huge thing. Concentrate on what are the small little things that will make the difference. And then it also suggests about, in terms of making it easy, to use technology to automate your habits. Use the reminders, use the technology we have. Now, this won't work for everyone, because some people, that's a big switch off in the first place. But there are things there that can prompt you and encourage you. And if you think about, the learning that we're doing nowadays, if any of you have got an app that's helping you learn a language, and there's loads of them free at the moment, which is brilliant. The way they encourage you is it's an automated process, but then they also have the little enhancements that Kevin's probably going to talk about the next bit. They have the little bits that say, well done, you're doing really well, and encouraging you like that. And then monitor your progress. So it's automating your habits and recording some of your progress that helps you keep satisfied. There we go. That's number 3.
So that ties in really, just to remind you where we are. So that's about making it easy. And the final step, really, making it satisfying, is really what happens at the end of the process. As Rita says, though, one of the things that we can do at the end of a process, particularly with technology, is we can share it with other people in terms of saying this is what I've done today. I've got to level 15 on whatever I've been doing. one of the other things that we can think about in terms of when we are rewarding ourselves with having done the activity is to make sure that we are having a sort of unbroken run of things. And a lot of the technology, the apps these days, there's one in particular, for example, which I'm using at the moment to learn a language. What it does every day is to say, that's fantastic, you've done a 7-day streak, make sure that you do it again tomorrow, and you're on an 8-day streak. So there's something very important there that they're tapping into, which is once we get this momentum going, and we feel that we are establishing this habit, in other words, it's becoming a regular pattern for us, that in turn gives us motivation. So if we have some mechanism for kind of capturing technology or otherwise, you know, how many days or how many times we have done this particular activity, that itself can be very beneficial. There is a nice rule that goes alongside this as well, and it's that if you do happen to miss a day or a week or whatever it is, make sure that you don't miss it two occasions running. So, you know, if you say to yourself, the habit is I am going to do X every day, if you do happen to miss a day, make doubly sure that you do it the next day, and then you'll pick that momentum up again.
Excellent. So that covers, I'm mindful of time, that covers the 4 steps or the 4 stages and the 4 considerations in terms of setting and maintaining probably a good habit. Just one little reminder, Kevin, if you pop up the A slide here, just a little reminder not to get too disappointed. There's a valley of disappointment. Remind yourself perhaps that many of us, when we start a new habit, we have an expectation of achieving results quite quickly and on a very linear trajectory that goes up. So you've got this line that, look, our expectations, Kevin, I don't know if you can use your cursor just to go along that line. So we're expecting things to improve at a regular momentum along the way. What actually happens is the curved arrow going up. So the curved arrow, so you go slowly, 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 then you reach this sort of quantum bit or a tipping point, and then you'll get better at the yoga, you can do the twists, or you get better at the running, and then it zooms up a lot swifter. But there's that valley of disappointment, that gap in between, and this is where the majority of people who give up on a habit maybe flounder. Their motivation doesn't get geared up. There isn't the motivation app that tells you keep going in that thing. So you need to have that for yourself. And remind yourself, this is helping me be who I want to be. Go back to what's obvious. Go back to what's attractive about it. What's it going to achieve for you in the long term? Associate in an NLP fashion, associate into what this is going to give you when you have achieved all of that. So I think that, oh, we've just got a summary, haven't we, Kevin? I'm rushing through a little bit just at the end there. But we were just going to then summarize a few points before we work through the coach state elicitation. So the key bits really, oh, I'm losing my voice a bit. The key bits is the process of behavior change always starts with awareness. So it's understanding both what you're doing already and who you want to be. So it starts with understanding what you're doing already. Can you see that if you understand the habits you've got already, we've mentioned about the bundling together, we've mentioned about stacking them. It's even that awareness that, have I got some habits? How are you going to make that judgment call as to whether a habit is good or bad, or useful or not so useful for you? I think the measure for that is this helping me be the person I'm going to be? Whether it's drinking wine, smoking cigarettes, doing athletics, is this thing that I'm doing helping me be more of the person I want to be? Raising awareness, there's a phrase that some of you might be familiar with, like pointing and calling, you know, just, well, what is it I'm doing? You know, point to it, label it. Oh, I'm doing that thing. It helps bring an unconscious automatic habit to our conscious awareness. And then we can make a choice as to whether we want to continue it or perhaps change it. And I think, Kevin,
yeah,
is that pretty much what we wanted to say about habits in our whistle stop tour, which I trust you found some very practical things for. If you're all happy, we are recording it, and if you're all happy, it will take about another 5 minutes for Kevin to walk us through the coach elicitation. Yeah. So if you're all happy to stay with us for that long, that's brilliant. If not, we will be able to share the recording for that. But it would be great if you could stay with us and then perhaps for another few minutes just to give us a little bit of feedback.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take it that that's okay.
Rita, just one thing. I'm not sharing screen at the moment, are we?
No.
No, that's good. Okay. It might be good just to see if there are any questions at this point, do you think, before we get into the final?
Yes, bit? Questions on habits. Because no one's dashed away, really, have they yet? So, hands up, wave, smile, or put a blue hand up if you want to. Any observations or questions of clarification? No, we all right? I can't see any hands. So we're going to assume at this point, we are of course available if you want to drop us a line or give us a call to carry on and remain connected with you in the coming weeks on this subject or others. Okay. All right. So Kevin, I think we're going to go over to coach elicitation, please.
Okay, I'm just going to share for a second, just to remind everybody actually that this is the coach one. So this is kind of where we started really when we talked about this coach and crash model, and one thing that we wanted to share with you tonight is there is a fabulous little technique that you can use immediately for getting into this coach state. In other words, becoming very centered, becoming very open, becoming very aware, very connected, and holding that space. So we're going to just talk you through this now. So we want you to do this kind of internally. So if you want to just close your eyes as we talk you through this now, and I will take you through this particular technique. Okay, so just get yourself into a nice relaxed state now. Just put your feet firmly on the floor, and if you feel comfortable closing your eyes, that's fine. And just for a moment, just become aware of your breathing. And notice where you're breathing. Are you breathing high up in the chest, or are you breathing in the middle, or maybe more towards your belly? And just become aware of the rate that you're breathing now. And as you do that, just begin to focus your attention in the lower part of your abdomen. And we're going to focus on now you being centered. Some of you will be familiar with all of the techniques around what happens when you focus your attention onto your abdomen, and keep your attention there for a moment. Know this is the center of gravity, and gain a sense of your unchanging and grounding force. Sense your gut instinct. And when we move on to open, now focus your attention in the heart center and allow yourself to experience feelings towards yourself and others. Allow these feelings to simply exist without creating a narrative, without pushing them away or magnifying them. Simply allow yourself to feel. Sense your emotional instincts. Now, as you become aware, focus your attention in your head center, that place between your eyebrows. Apart from your brain, there is so much sensory activity in your head, your eyes, your ears, your nose and your mouth. Notice how all these senses create a great center of awareness without getting lost in thought. Just notice this and sense your head instincts. Connect. Now find a way to connect these three centers: the head, the heart, and the gut, so you have access to all your inner resources. And hold. Pace yourself and simply be with these resources without needing to use them for now. Let them mix and settle, and know that they will be available whenever you need them.
That's great. And now, if you want to, in your own time, open your eyes and join us again. And I trust you felt that sense, that state of centeredness and openness and awareness. And that's a technique you can take with you and perhaps build into a new habit for yourself at this time and forever. And I'll once again just open up for any observations, questions, or feedback on the session this evening. I'll just, whilst you're thinking about that, just to remind you, we're intending to run these sessions every 2 weeks, and they're publicised through Eventbrite, and I'll ensure you all get an invite to the next ones. But we'd also welcome any suggestions for any topics we want to cover. We're quite happy to have a more informal chat, but sometimes it's useful to have a link and a hook to have a topic on, and we'd be interested in know what you'd find most useful. So please share with us now any of that feedback, observations, or suggestions for future topics. We just to remind you, if you don't share it now, please feel free to just email us or give us a call with any further updates on that. Anyone want to share with us just before we close? No? Nobody? Oh, Jonathan.
We're all still in trance, I think.
Jonathan put his hand up. And then I unmuted him. Then I muted him. You're still muted. Why is that? Unmute.
Now, there we are.
That's
Can
it.
you hear me? Right,
Yes.
okay. Yeah, no, it's very, very useful. Thank you very much. And I was wondering, you know, will you be having these sessions mainly sort of wrapped around the sort of the, you know, coronavirus situation, or are you thinking having them just more general? And the other quick thing I was going to say was maybe if there's a little bit more time in the sessions just for a bit more interaction, you know, for people to be able to say a bit more.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. I think our initial intention was certainly to make these available and share some of our knowledge in the hope that it would be helpful in the current situation. We run a regular NLP forum, and I'd say most of the topics we cover are all useful in a much broader sphere than that, but could be incredibly pertinent at a time like this as well. So I think it's a cross of both, really, Jonathan, but we are open to suggestions and recommendations. I'm certainly with you about the interaction as well, so we'll look at the timings of it, if people can do longer or we only have one topic and allow more space around it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And Natalie?
Yeah, I just wanted to say heartfelt thank you. I've genuinely got a lot out of this session. I've got lots of notes. I've been scribbling furiously. I'm going to look up some of the stuff you've shared, some books to look up, a reminder of Dilt's logical levels, which I haven't touched for a while, covered years ago, love it. So I'm going to get that back out. And yeah, just genuinely really enjoyed it. Thanks to Steph for highlighting it to me. And thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. It's a delight. Okay, is Chrissy, were you wanting to say something?
Yeah, just to more or less reiterate what the previous speaker was saying, that I've got an awful lot from today. I recently got my practitioner certificate, so I'm still sort of on the journey now, to complete the coaching one. So coming back to the hub, it was just pure relief that you put something out there. I thought, how wonderful, again, we can all join forces. It's brilliant. I've got a place to learn and just keep going. It really sort of boosted my confidence when I got that Eventbrite information through. So just keep going. I love all the sessions, really do.
Thank you. Thank you. So I can't see any. Oh, Natalie, we've got Liz. Liz has her hand up. Liz, do you want to unmute yourself or me? I can do it. Yeah. Okay. Oh.
Might it be possible for you to email us the slides that you've shared?
Yes, I'm sure it will be.
Just the what? There's probably about 4 or 5 of them. That would be really useful to let us have those if you could.
Certainly. Thank you, Liz. Yes, we will. I'm assuming you all got an email from me from First Position, as well as the link was in Eventbrite, in which case I've got your right email addresses, etc. Yeah? Okay. All right, unless I hear to the contrary. Okay. Well, it's 45, so we'll please do feel free. We'll come up with ideas ourselves if we don't hear anything, but we would really welcome. We haven't heard from you all today, and that's because it was jam-packed with input, wasn't it? But why we're here is we really want to share what we think is incredibly useful, but we are full of that stuff that we think is incredibly useful. Kevin, anything you want to say before we close?
Just to say thanks for everybody, really, for connecting up with us. It's been great to see so many faces, familiar faces, and just for everybody, keep on doing what you're doing, stay well, look after yourself and look after other people as well.
Brilliant.
And keep your distance.
Keep your distance. Stay virtual, but spread the word. It was lovely. I think it was Steph, Natalie, you said Steph introduced it. Please spread the word if you think it'll be useful for more people. I know there's a lot of things out there at the moment, and we maybe want to be selective about what we gear into, but please spread the word and keep joining us, and fabulous to see all the new people as well.
Great.
With lots of love and wishing you to keep safe and well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.